Hello everyone, I'm Terry Duke, and welcome to my channel. Now, I've been reviewing Warband mods for a couple of years now, and over the last year especially, I've been reflexively close-minded at the mention of new mods to check out because, in my mind, if I've made dozens of mod videos over all this time, and someone brings up a mod that somehow has never been mentioned before, then surely it must not be that relevant, and it's probably not worth mentioning. But that's not strictly true. Amazing mods can be overshadowed by other amazing mods for a number of reasons. Sometimes the modders moved on to other things and their mods, while good, have only been forgotten over time. Sometimes good mods simply go unnoticed, and sometimes I'm just the one who hasn't noticed them. So for this video, I decided to go on a different kind of journey. I basically dug through my comment sections of the past year in search of any mods I had not heard of before, big and small, buggy and incomplete, with the idea of putting them all into the same video. So join me today as I review yet another 16 Warband mods that had simply not been mentioned in my content until now. Before we get started though, a quick word from the sponsor, and it's not a joke this time, I actually got a real sponsor. This video is brought to you by War Sales, the brand new DLC for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, released just 2 days prior to publishing this video. The release of Bannerlord was a slow process which hampered its own hype, but in many ways, it is the sequel that Warband was meant to have, and the latest DLC introduces naval gameplay in a way that the Mount & Blade series never experienced before. Thanks to the DLC, you will see tons of new features including a new Viking faction, an expanded world map, and insane naval battles, the likes of which you've never seen. And I've partnered with Games Planet to offer you the DLC at a discount. Games Planet is a game distributor that works alongside Steam and the game publishers to offer you Steam product keys, often at a much cheaper price. It's very straightforward. You simply buy the game from their website, they give you a product key which you can activate on the Steam desktop app, and that's it. From there, it works the exact same as all your other Steam games, no strings attached. Use the link below to buy the War Sales DLC for Bannerlord, and use promo code TerryDuke in all caps to get an additional 14% off, and you'll be supporting my channel at the same time. Thanks to Games Planet, and thank you for watching. Now onto the video. At number 16, going from the wackiest and buggiest mods to the better ones, we have Transformers But Warband. This mod is the latest release by one of the best Warband modders out there, Kill You Ready. This same modder is behind the wild experiments such as Dragon Ball Z Vegeta, CSGO But Warband, and Violence Basketball. His mods are wacky and hilarious, as is this one. Currently it's just a demo and there's not much to do, but if you ever wanted to be a Transformer in Warband, now's your chance. Basically, anywhere you go, you'll be a Transformer, and not even the same one, it changes in every scene. As the mod page explains, the Transformer will change shape at random, but you can force it yourself with the left Alt key. In battle, you use the V and B keys to attack, although everything is so weird that I'm not sure what it does, and pressing the tile key gets you to fly, so here, I'm transforming into a helicopter and flying away, I guess. So yeah, it's pretty funny for like 5 minutes. As I said, it's just a demo currently, but it's not like you can expect much more than that anyway. At number 15, this is Jawa Dipwa. This mod only exists in the form of a demo released over a year ago, and the modder has said that he stopped working on it to focus on something else, so what you see is what you get. Jawa Dipwa takes place on the Java island in Indonesia in the 1500s, which makes it a pretty niche setting in the Warband community, very similar to Suvarnabhumi Mayahuf, which I'm sure I equally butchered. As such, the weapons and armors are meant to reflect the time and place, but I'm not really familiar with it, so I couldn't tell you which is what and if it's even correct. What I did like in this mod though was the environment. It looks simply beautiful, and although some scenes were bugged, the ones that weren't were very charming. In terms of features, well, the mod was built on top of Hispania 1200 among other mods, so there's lots of new animations and sound effects, and I can imagine the sieges will be pretty cool as well, assuming the town scenes aren't bugged. There's also some unique locations which supposedly hold treasure if you look hard enough, but these scenes are huge, and you can only leave them by getting all the way to the edges, which is a bit annoying. Otherwise, well, the immersion is pretty good, but as it's just an abandoned demo, there's not much to expect from it. And number 15 is one of many enhanced native mods out there, and that's Silverstag. This mod was last updated in 2015. Among its many features include all the diplomacy options you would expect, there's new sound effects, new items, the lords have all changed names and titles for some reason, and it's got the tournament options I've seen from other mods, which makes it possible to keep fighting into every round by changing the way you bet. So in terms of native enhanced mods, it's pretty generic compared to all the other ones. Unfortunately, in my playthrough, I got spammed with so many script error messages that I could barely see what I was doing, so I didn't stick to it long. Experiences can vary though, so for a full list of the features, you can check out the ModDB page, link in the description. But from my perspective, it was interesting to see this mod, because while the mod hasn't been updated in a while, you can still see some of its features in more recent mods. The sound effects can be found again in Diplomacy 4 Let Them Reloaded, for instance, while the tournament scene from Suno can be seen in Paris now, so it definitely gives the mod a sense of legacy despite being abandoned. At number 13, on the lighter side of incomplete but still cool, we have Bronze Age, also known as Ancestors 2112 BC. If it's a Rush reference, I totally dig it. This mod takes us to North Africa, the Middle East, and Greece in the Bronze Age. As such, there are no advanced weapons or armors, as most people fight with barely any clothes on and mostly use spears or projectiles. The mod is relatively recent, with its last update being in April of last year, and it has a lot of potential. I myself went for an ancient Egyptian warrior, and it looks pretty cool. The troop trees themselves feel pretty complete. There's also a few mods like diplomacy and new animations, so overall it's not bad. However, it's also still largely incomplete, featuring the base game music and lots of scenery is buggy as hell, although that could be for a number of reasons. There's also a lot of bandits stuck in the sea apparently. When completed though, it's a beautiful setting that could easily make it stand out as a great mod, so I'll keep an eye on it for sure. At number 12, we are now moving on to the mods that are largely complete and works fine, starting with Lords of Calradia. This is yet another native enhanced mod, taking you back to Calradia but with more features. This one, however, is fairly interesting as it puts most of its emphasis on kingdom management, specifically with population mechanics. Each town and village starts with roughly the same amount of inhabitants, but as they grow or get raided, these populations either go up or down, and being able to recruit troops directly depends on this factor. And according to the mod page, if a lord's village, for example, has too low a reputation, they'll hire mercenaries instead. As for the player, you get lots of new improvements for your villages, with these meant to improve your population and militia, but you can also build a refuge. A refuge is basically a camp from which you can attract settlers that can then be recruited, effectively creating your own supply of manpower. However, this is a bit confusing to use, it's fairly limited compared to just owning a village, and it can be attacked by bandits if not protected enough. Overall, this seems like a fairly interesting mod, but to really delve into it, it would take more time than I can spare for this video. Still, I didn't see any bugs and it looks interesting, so feel free to try it out yourself. At number 11, still in Calradia, we have Outsiders of Calradia. This mod offers two main features, a new Viking faction to Calradia, as well as ships for sea traveling and raiding. If that sounds a lot like the Warsaws expansion for Battlelord, that's because it does sound a lot like it. I'm not joking, this mod from 2020 seems to be doing the exact same thing. So Outsiders of Calradia adds the faction of Jumne? I don't know how to pronounce that, which is west of the Kingdom of Vajir, with its own troop tree, as well as new scenery. You can start a game directly with this faction, and you'll have the option to either start with a crew and a ship, or even start out as a lord or king. Buying a ship is pretty straightforward, you just go to the port and talk to the harbor master. From there, you can sell your ship on the open ocean, where pretty much the only thing you'll encounter is merchant ships which aren't tied to any factions, so attacking them yields the same consequences as attacking bandit groups. Sea battles are very simplistic. In fact, I find the well-built bridges connecting the ships to be very funny, but the fight themselves are pretty normal. The main issue right now that I can see is that for one, those merchant ships don't offer loot like caravans do. All you get is the gear from the caravan guards, which makes attacking ships pretty worthless. There also seems to be some kind of glitch where I started the game with multiple fiefs, some of which don't seem to appear on the map at all, while all of them don't actually give me any money. Overall, it's a decent effort. The modder seemed to express when he first released the mod nearly 5 years ago that he had plans for future updates which would have likely improved and polished the mod significantly, but sadly that hasn't happened. So as a simple mod to use ships and experience a new Viking faction, Outsiders of Calradia works fine, but as with every mod on this list, there's just not that much going for it. At number 10, this is Fires of War. This mod I actually found quite enjoyable, as when it comes to ancient Greek mods, there aren't many. The only other mod I had played in this period was Sparta, a mod renowned in the Warband community for being both high quality and annoyingly difficult. As such, Fires of War seems to be a decent alternative, since Sparta isn't public anymore, and in terms of immersion, it's pretty good. The items look awesome, the scenery is alright, although it's still largely retextured native scenes. The main issue for me though is it seems a bit buggy. The few fights I tried to start with lords immediately led to crashes in spite of running the game with the script enhancer. Experiences may vary, and given that the mod hasn't been updated in over a decade, I can't really expect much more from it. Still, if you found other mods like Sparta too difficult and you don't mind this awful font, then Fires of War should be a pretty good experience as long as it doesn't crash. Otherwise, keep watching for an even better alternative. At number 9, we have 1468 AD Middle Europe. This mod received its last update in 2016, and for what it intended to do, it's fine. Basically picture native Calradia, but with a couple of mods like diplomacy and PBOD, new items in parts borrowed from 1257 AD, plus a map that covers Germany, and you've got 1468 AD. It basically feels like Kingdom Come Deliverance, but in Warband, and unfinished. Like I said, it works, but besides the new map and items, don't expect much else. The music and scenery is all still native. The one thing I did really like from this mod though is that while all of the companions are essentially the same as native, most of them come with fairly high-end gear and high skills despite still being fairly cheap. If you click the option at the beginning of the new game to have all of them in the same tavern from the start, it can make for both a very effective warband and a quick way to get some high-end gear from the start. The bandits are also interesting, if not unfortunately sparse considering the size of the map. Basically, even the low-end looters are numerous and have troops of several tiers, which is a welcomed variety for me. But other than that, 1468 AD could basically be a native enhanced mod, if not for the different world map. It's good, but it's not spectacular. And number 8, this is Calradia Overhaul plus 3 Kingdoms. As with most mods, the title says it all. We're in Calradia with some extra features, ranging from lots of new items, revamped troop trees, new companions, etc. But the main feature, naturally, is the 3 Kingdoms part, which sees the Kurgit faction being expanded and split into 3 factions, each with their own subculture and troop trees. And I have to say, the items look really good. The Shuhan faction specifically has a repeating crossbow unit, and having played very few mods with repeating crossbows, I was pretty excited about that and got an entire party of them. Sounded good in theory, but in this mod the troop deployments are a little off, and troops feel a bit slower to respond to orders, so I rarely got to have my perfect firing line. Overall, this is a pretty decent mod, considering the modder himself has little experience and hasn't updated it since 2018, but essentially, if you want a mod set in Calradia but with more Chinese elements, this is a good pick. At number 7, this was a tough ranking. This is Epic of Faya. So as I understand it, this mod was made by a Chinese modder and translated into English and ported to ModDB. So Epic of Faya takes us to a new world with new factions and so on. From what I can gather, the mod is meant to be story driven. You can in fact choose between an incomplete story and Sandbox, but Sandbox will also feature a series of events that will get the factions to go to war with each other, as well as other things. Overall, playing it, I was charmed. The music, the atmosphere, the new scenery, it's a surprisingly beautiful mod, even though it doesn't steer too far away from native. I mostly focused my campaign on being a solo adventurer, but the mod page advertises a lot of extra features in terms of kingdom management, including developing technologies, new town projects, and a new recruiting system. What really stands out though initially is the new UI, which works for the most part and is easy to grasp. This includes a compass mechanic in battle to see where enemies are, and a new character menu that actually makes it very easy to manage companions as well. In the world, there's lots of new bandits that are all pretty hardcore, including assassins, which kicked my butt, and a group of rogue knights where, I have to say, their armor actually eats up most of the damage, and that made it scary as hell. There's also a fort which is supposedly hunted at night, but I'm not really sure how it works. I mean, I tried to go at night and nothing happened. Overall, I'm very curious to play this mod some more. Sadly, there were too many for me to cover for this video, and although the mod itself works fairly well and is stable, it's still not finished. And with the latest update being 2 years ago, it's unclear if it's still in development. Still, good effort, you should try this one out as well. And number 6, a lot wackier but somehow more fun because of it, this is To Cuba. A last-minute addition to the video, this mod is similar to Warzone Akron, in that you're in a nuclear post-apocalypse, although this one takes you to the Caribbean. The mod was originally in Spanish, but translated and ported to ModDB, and overall it's a lot of fun, especially because the mod doesn't take itself too seriously, something you'll notice immediately when starting a new game and looking at the options. I mean, pick a reason for why people hated you. You're too hot, or you were a Republican or Democrat. Mind you, this is 1500 years after the nuclear war according to the lore. Pick an option for what happened to your family. Coronavirus? Well, actually it turned out to be syphilis. Anyway, once you start the game, the world map stretches from the coast of Florida to Jamaica, with Cuba being the main landmass. The mod itself was built off Gekokujo, which shows in the sword animation and sound effects, although even some of the scenery is just castles from Gekokujo with a retexture using metal sheets, to give the impression that they are shanty towns. It's pretty funny. As for fighting, the mod is pretty hardcore, but I quickly cheated to see what items are available, which included a ridiculously overpowered modern bow. Otherwise, I just rescued female prisoners from looters and went to war with bandit groups, of which there are a lot. Cuba itself is completely crammed up, which is part of the lore from this mod. Apparently everyone fled to Cuba thinking it was a safe haven, but it's just as bad as everywhere else, so there's a lot of fighting going on. Overall, the mod is pretty funny, but it's also easy to see where it's incomplete, so it's fun, but I wouldn't have a full campaign in it. And finally, on the more polished end of things, we have at number 5, 1776 American Revolution. Last updated in 2017, this mod brings you to North America to fight on either side of the revolution. In terms of immersion, it's pretty close, with lots of gorgeous military uniforms, lots of guns, as well as new music and troop trees. There is some new scenery, but some of it is only small adjustments to native scenes, and some of it is buggy. As for battles, the firing line works fairly well. My main issue, as with other gun mods, is the lack of fire at my command option, forcing troops to switch to melee weapons instead of simply holding fire. It's a nitpick though. The main issue as usual is that guns are largely inaccurate, so the pace of battles can slow down, especially if the NPC lord is not on the attack. But overall, pretty good effort. If only it had a bit more polishing, it'd be pretty solid. Which brings us to the few solid mods of this video, starting at number 4 with Knights of the Last Battle. This mod actually feels like a solid total conversion that sadly has gone under the radar. Knights of the Last Battle takes us to Western Europe in the late medieval period. As such, its aesthetics is very much in line with other mods like Deeds of Arms and Chivalry, with gorgeous high-end weapons and armors. What really made this mod stand out though is the fighting animations, which are a bit awkward at first, but actually look awesome, with cool standing poses and different forms of attacks like half swording, which really took me by surprise. The mod was last updated in 2018, with its modder disappearing afterwards. It was ported back to ModDB just last year, and as far as late medieval mods go, this is a solid immersion, with the only thing lacking being the music, which is largely absent. Otherwise, great mod, definitely give it a go. At number 3, this is a return to the classics with Paradigm Chronomancer. This is the latest update from the wackiest mod ever, Paradigm Worlds, which is a mod set in a post-apocalyptic bio-warfare world of sorts, where magic, mutations, and aliens all intertwine. The main change with Paradigm Chronomancer is that it also gets mixed with another mod that was recently updated, Fantasy Calradia. So essentially, the main change from Paradigm Worlds is the addition of magic and spells which you can buy and cast. Not that I actually tried any of it, as with every playthrough in the Paradigm mod, everything is so weird and wacky and confusing that I didn't actually get to do much at all. In my latest campaign, I chose one of the nearly endless starting options, which got me started with lots of elite companions, all stranger than the next. I got in a few fights with undead hordes, only to drop dead a few times myself without ever knowing what killed me. Eventually I decided to try and take a bandit town, and it got real confusing, but eventually we conquered it. Honestly, this is a great mod, whether you play it for a short period of time and just have a blast, not having a clue what's going on, or you actually take the time to figure it all out and get to explore all the crazy features. If you enjoy the chaos, definitely give this one a go. At number 2, this is a mod that was actually mentioned in my comments several times, so it's not really niche, just old, and a mod I took way too long to try. This is Peloponnesian War. This here is a mod set in ancient Greece which dates all the way back to 2011. It was always described to me as an excellent mod, especially when it comes to alternatives to the Sparta mod, which was again, way too difficult. And well now, I just feel bad I didn't play it sooner, because indeed, it is the definitive ancient Greece experience for Warband. Lots of new scenery and items, but not too hard to play. Initially, I was a bit baffled by the huge warbands and even bigger garrisons, but with a larger battle size and the warband party size itself being significantly higher, it means the battles can be huge, but never too grindy. I also like that in this mod there are effectively two tiers of recruits, the youths and the hoplites, similarly to Gegokujo with the samurai class in Ashigaru. Effectively, you can hire elite hoplites in towns at a higher price, or hire peasants in villages that can either turn into weaker versions of the hoplites or peltasts, which are effective skirmishers. Overall, I really enjoyed the mod. The only noticeable drawbacks is the AI for bandits and the invincible shields. For the former, bandits always take a defensive line, while sending a single soldier to fight you. I'm guessing it's meant to be a duel, but it doesn't really work here, and once the bandits form their line, they become largely inactive, which is disappointing. Lords, however, are much smarter, attacking in waves, using skirmishers extensively, before finishing you off with the hoplites in reserve. It was pretty awesome. But then there's also the shields, which by design have so much hit points, they're basically unbreakable. And it's a bit annoying because the peltasts can make some amazing volleys of javelins, but because the shields don't break, they barely have an impact. But truly, besides that, Peloponnesian War is the ancient Greece mod to try. In spite of its last update being in 2011, it still works phenomenally well. And finally, the most pleasant surprise for this video at number 1 was Twilight of the Sun King. Twilight of the Sun King takes us to Europe in the early 1700s, so in terms of scope and theme, think of Leg just 100 years earlier. Despite only one version coming out in 2013, this turned out to be an amazing mod, with cool items, immersive scenery with forts, and surprisingly good reloading animations. Playing it with the script enhancer was very stable, but beyond that, the mod just played very well. Unlike L'Aigle, the AI works perfectly here, either holding a defensive line or carefully approaching your army before charging at the last minute. What I really liked though was the recruiter feature. Basically, every town, castle, and village has a large pool of recruits that you can get for very cheap at any time, effectively encouraging you to throw yourself into bloody wars, knowing you can always replenish your forces very quickly. So all in all, this feels like the mod that L'Aigle should have been, without the bugs, without the poor AI, and overall just as immersive. Only reason it never got more attention is because only one version came out 12 years ago, so it was likely overshadowed over time. Still, another great mod which ranks highly for me. And that's about it for today. Thanks again to Games Planet for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to click the link down below and use my promo code to get 14% off the latest DLC for Bannerlord, War Sales. I'll be making my own dedicated review of it next week, so don't forget to also subscribe so as to not miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.